Welcome to HPA 400, the Principles of Public Health Management. This week, we will focus on leadership. This week, learning objective will focus on Chapter 12 from the Kepler's textbook on leadership. Leadership has various different types of flavor. In our contemporary world of changing time, where there's danger and opportunity at disposal, it is important to be adaptive to these changing environment. Therefore, I also assigned another article that focuses on adaptive leadership. This is not described in your textbook. In addition to teaching in the MPH program in the Health Policy Administration Department, I am also a faculty in the DRPH program, the Doctor of Public Health in Leadership at UIC. In our leadership program, I specifically teach courses on economic evaluation, policy analysis, and policy development as tools that leaders can use to lead change. In this specific course, I'm going to take a few of those concepts that I teach in the DRPH program in this course because I feel that there's opportunities for MPH students and MPH graduates to adapt these leadership skills, especially adaptive leadership skills, in management in public health settings. Therefore, I assigned a few of the papers that I often teach our doctoral students in the adaptive leadership program and highlight them here in this specific course. In the Kepler textbook, they're going to highlight many of the very commonly used leadership theories that are very applicable in many different settings. Again, there's no one-size-fits-all. As a leader, you will have to test your constituents, your audience that you're serving, and the employees that are working for you and with you to see what works to lead them toward your same vision. What is adaptive leadership? In our changing environment, being able to adapt and to shift accordingly to lead your audience in the direction of a new vision is critical. There are 5 steps in adaptive leadership. First is to diagnose. Diagnose allows you to better understand the system you're in, identify the stakeholders' interests, and surface what's really driving behavior, and also naming the obstacles. Second is to mobilize. Put your ideas into action, reframe from your stakeholders' perspective, expand your authority, and also be comfortable with conflict. Know that it exists. Third is to reflect. Recognize and prioritize your loyalty, your supporter, your constituents. Know your own triggers, your emotional trigger, your tolerance. Identify your true role and scope of authority. Fourth is to connect. Understand your own aspiration and how it connects your leadership purpose. Engage with others. Understand the problem. Define the problem. Understand your own weakness. Conduct your own SWOT analysis. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And speak from the heart to inspire people. Fifth is to grow. Exceed your own authority through leadership. Grow your own personal support network and constantly renew yourself through professional development. This week, we will discuss the importance of leadership and the differences between management and leadership in organization. Identify the different leadership theories and approaches, and explain the strength and limitation of each leadership theory and approach. Leadership involves influence, a group context, and a goal attainment. Leadership is a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. Leadership is different from management. Managers produce order and consistency. Leaders produce change and movement. This diagram illustrates the differences between management and leadership. Management tend to focus on budgeting and planning, organizing, staffing, and controlling and problem solving. Whereas leaders establish a direction, align people toward the same goal, and motivate and inspire others to meet that goal. Leadership and management work hand in hand. As you look at this diagram, you can see that in the middle circle are characteristics of management. They set targets, they plan, they select and assign staff, monitor, and respond appropriately. Whereas the leadership is on the outer circle. It develops people's sense of responsibility, develop wisdom and vision, communicate this vision, demonstrate and live by values. They decide and they offer opportunities. Now we will dive into the leadership theories and approaches. First, the trait approach. It focuses on traits that leaders exhibit. In order to increase organizational effectiveness, organization will use personality assessment to find the right people. Personality assessments such as the leadership trait questionnaire, the Myers-Briggs personality inventory are ways to understand individual traits. There are strengths in using this approach. Intuitively appealing as leaders possess special traits. There's a degree of credibility because these type of questionnaire has been highly researched. There's a deeper understanding of how personality relates to leadership process. And it can provide a benchmark for what to look for in a leader. However, there are some limitations to the trait approach because it can fail to establish a definitive list of traits. The list is highly subjective and it doesn't account for situational effects. For example, in adaptive leadership, that specifically takes into account situations and not useful for training or development. On the other hand, there's the skills approach. The skills approach describes leadership from skills perspective. It provides a structure for understanding effective leadership. Outcomes are a direct result of a leader's skill, competency in problem solving, social judgment, and knowledge. In this diagram, the skill approach you see on the left side describes individual attributes. And these individual attributes lead to competencies. Competencies such as problem solving, social judgment, and knowledge. And with these competencies, it can lead to effective leadership outcome, such as performance, effective problem solving. And all of these are influenced by career experiences and environmental factors. The style approach assesses leadership as a behavior with a task and relationship dimension. It's the first to generally assess the leadership behavior. In this specific diagram, you see a matrix. On one axis, you see the concern for people, and on the other axis, it's a concern for production. And each of these coordinates are rated and provided some feedback to where the leadership may lie. Situational approach is where the leaders must adapt their leadership style to match the situation at hand. This requires high level of flexibility. The strength to a situation approach is that there is credible models for training employees to become effective leaders. It's straightforward and easily understood and applied. Clearly outlines what you should and should not do in various settings. In this specific diagram, it highlights 4 aspects: a situational approach, delegating, supporting, coaching, and directing. In each of these quadrants, there are specific activities, characteristics of a leader. For example, when you are delegating, you want to be empowering, acknowledging, and challenging to your employees. But when you're in the supporting phase, you want to be listening and asking good questions. Be collaborative. Appreciate the feedback. In the quadrant where it's coaching, you want to be explaining and clarifying the goals. Offer shared feedback. Encourage feedback. Offer praises. In the directing phase, you want to define, prioritize, teach and show, and give feedback. The path goal theory is where leaders' job is to direct, guide, and coach their employees to help them reach their goal. Leader style must adapt to fit the task and employees' characteristics. It provides assumptions for how different leadership styles will interact with employees' characteristics that can affect motivation. In this diagram, you will see that the leader's behavior, such as being directive and supportive, can affect the employee's characteristics, the task characteristics, and lead to motivation. The advantages of using the path goal theory is that it's useful to understand how leadership behaviors affects employees' work performance and satisfaction. It integrates motivation principles of the expectancy theories and is a practical model. However, there are some limitations. Sometimes it's very complex and difficult to implement and treats leadership as a one-way event. The leader-member exchange theory describes and prescribes leadership. It's a central concept that focuses on leaders and subordinates. It's important to recognize in-groups and out-groups within organization. It believes leaders should form relationship with all subordinates, offering each developmental opportunity. Focuses on building trust and respect rather than focusing on differences to bring all subordinates into the in-group. In this diagram, you see that the leader is in orange and that there's a group in green. This is where it separates the in-group and the out-group. And the leader is specifically focusing in professional development in the subordinates in the green, which represents in building up the leader-member exchange. It clearly defines the in versus the out-group members. The strength of the leader-member and exchange theory is that it validates experiences of how people within an organization relate to each other and the leader, while the outside group remains on the outside. The limitation to the leader, member, and exchange theory is that it supports a privileged group. Are you in the in? Are you in the in group? There's more of a clique aspect to it. The transformational leadership approach focuses on empowerment and nurturing the followers. It stimulates change by becoming role models for the follower. It creates a vision, builds trust, fosters collaboration. Leaders are like social architects. It builds a social network. In this specific diagram, you see the 4 characteristics of transformational leadership: idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individualized consideration. All of these 4 characteristics drives performance beyond expectation. The servant leadership approach believes by putting the followers first, and the outcome will emerge. This focuses on leadership that strongly motivates to help others. Followers must be receptive to this leadership style to be effective. It can result in a community and societal change. In this specific diagram, you will see the characteristics that foster transformational and servant leadership innovation cycle: the engagement, trust, relationship building, a learning culture, being adaptable and flexible, offering innovation, and building upon integrity. The strengths of a servant approach is that it centralizes on this giving aspect. It provides a counterintuitive approach to the use of influence and how leaders share control. The limitation to the servant leadership approach is that it may not be effective when subordinates are not open to being guided, supported, and empowered. Maybe some followers rather follow rather than to transition into a leadership position. Researchers are unable to create a common definition on this specific framework. The team leadership approach identifies teams and groups' needs and offers suggestions on appropriate actions. It assists leaders to make a sense of complex groups and improve group effectiveness. In this specific diagram, you see that leadership decisions has a two-tier effect: internal leadership and external leadership action. This leads to a task orientation, relationship building, and environmental factors. Tasks such as goal setting, structures for results, training, and maintaining standards are aspects of internal leadership actions. Relationship building through coaching, collaborating, monitoring conflict, building commitments are all aspects of relationship building. The external leadership actions are focused on the environmental factors such as networking, advocating, buffering situations, assessing, and sharing information. All three of these aspects lead to team effectiveness in terms of performance development. And this information feeds back to the leadership decision. And this is a circular event. The psychodynamic approach raises awareness of the implication of leaders' and followers' personality traits on their work and relationship. It uses personal assessments to determine psychological types. In this specific table, it highlights the psychological preferences and leadership. The preference of being a thinker, a feeler, an extrovert, introvert, intuitor, sensor, judger, perceiver. Each of these preferences has a specific leadership plus, a positive, and a leadership minus, the negative aspect. For example, if you have a preference of being a thinker, your leadership plus is that you're objective, very rational, you're a problem solver. However, some of the leadership minuses is that you may be too critical, too demanding, and insensitive. However, if you know that you have a preference of being a thinker type of leader, you will then know that you have these critical minuses, such as being very critical, demanding, and insensitive. Then you may want to modify these personality traits when you're leading your team. For example, if you're an extrovert, you have the leadership plus of being very energizing, communicative, and very open. On the other hand, the leadership minus is that sometimes you may be too overly communicative, where there's a communication overload, and that your constituents, your followers may be introverts and may not want to have so much information. These are examples of different preferences of being a leader. And by understanding your pluses and minuses, you can be more reflective on how you can lead your group in a given situation. The ethical leadership approach focuses on the kind of values and morals an individual or society ascribes to as desirable and appropriate. It focuses on the motive of individuals. Ethical leaders treat other values with respect. The strength to an ethical leadership approach is that it's highly researched in. It suggests leadership is not an abnormal phenomenon. It believes that ethics should be integral to the broader domain of leadership. In summary, we covered various different types of leadership approaches, such as the adaptive leadership, the trait approach, the skill approach, the style approach, the situational approach, the path goal theory, the leader-member exchange theory, the transformational leadership approach, the servant leadership approach, the team leader approach, the psychodynamic approach, and the ethical leadership approach. I hope that this gives you a window to all the different flavors of leadership styles and skills, and that as you become a public health leader in your own realm, you will have a better sense that which of these leadership theories and skills match your personality to lead your vision to make a public health impact.